The first sign that something was wrong appeared on the floor. It was not blood, fire, or a broken weapon. It was a single human footprint. The footprint stood alone on the black stone of the Imperial trial chamber, surrounded by thousands of silver lines that formed an enormous circle. Beyond those lines, hundreds of alien nobles watched in complete silence. At the center of the chamber stood Kale Varen, a human engineer from the small colony of New Earth. He looked painfully ordinary. No armor covered his body. No weapon hung from his belt. He carried nothing except a small metal case and a worn emergency bracelet. Across from him stood Princess Illyra of the Vaelorian Empire. She was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin, silver eyes, and long white hair that floated slightly in the artificial gravity of the chamber. Her ceremonial armor covered her shoulders and chest with black crystal plates. She was the youngest royal in Vaelorian history to command a planetary fleet, and she had personally requested the humans' trial. For 300 years, the Vaelorians had believed humans were physically weak, emotionally unstable, and technologically primitive. Humanity had no military empire. It controlled only 7 colonies. Its ships were slower than almost every major civilization in the galaxy. Its soldiers were not genetically enhanced, and its people still died from diseases that the Vaelorian medical systems had eliminated centuries ago. To Princess Illyra, humans were survivors. Nothing more. That was why she had created the Trial of the Broken Star. No champion had ever completed it. The trial was designed to destroy strength, intelligence, and courage one layer at a time. Illyra looked at Kale. "Human," she said coldly. "You asked the Empire to release your colony from military occupation." Kale nodded. "And you claimed that humanity deserves a seat in the Galactic Council." "Yes." A quiet laugh moved through the chamber. Illyra raised one hand. "Then prove that humanity deserves it." The floor beneath Kyle suddenly opened. He dropped into darkness. The chamber exploded with sound. But Princess Illyra did not smile. She knew exactly what waited below. The first test was called the Weight of the Dead. Kale landed inside a massive underground chamber. The walls were covered with thousands of names. Alien names. Human names. Names from civilizations that had disappeared centuries ago. A voice filled the chamber. "Strength will not save you." Heavy gravity suddenly crushed down upon him. Kel fell to one knee. His bones screamed. The metal case slipped from his hand. He tried to stand. The gravity increased again. His breathing became difficult. Above him, cameras watched every movement. Illyra observed from the control room. She expected him to activate some hidden human technology. He did not. Instead, Kale opened his metal case. Inside were 6 small devices. He placed them on the ground. The devices immediately began measuring the chamber. Gravity, temperature, air pressure, radiation. Illyra narrowed her eyes. "He is analyzing the room." Her chief scientist looked confused. "That is impossible. The trial is designed to overwhelm the nervous system." Illyra said nothing. Kyle slowly crawled toward one of the walls. He noticed something the architects of the trial had overlooked. The names were not random. They formed a pattern. He began counting them. Then he smiled. The alien cameras zoomed closer. Kale touched 3 names. The chamber went silent. The gravity disappeared. The first test had not been about surviving the weight. It had been about understanding why the chamber had been built. Illyra stared at the screen. For the first time, she wondered whether she had made a mistake. The second chamber was colder. Much colder. Kale entered a frozen corridor where the temperature dropped below anything a normal human body could survive. At the far end stood a sealed door. A voice spoke again. "Only the strongest may continue." Ice formed on Kale's hair. His hands began shaking. He walked forward anyway. Every few meters, the corridor changed. The walls moved. The floor shifted. The lights disappeared. Kale stopped. He listened. Nothing. Then he closed his eyes. Illyra watched. "What is he doing?" The scientist answered, "I don't know." Kale placed his palm against the wall. He felt a faint vibration. Then another. Then another. The entire corridor was producing a repeating signal. He removed his emergency bracelet and placed it against the wall. The bracelet was designed for human rescue missions. It was not powerful, but it could recognize patterns. A minute later, Kale found the answer. The corridor was not randomly changing. It was responding to sound. He began tapping the wall. 1 tap, 2 taps, 3. The corridor changed. Kale repeated the pattern. The door opened. The alien observers became restless. Elira leaned toward the screen. How did he know? The scientist shook his head. He listened. The princess remained silent. No Valorian had ever completed the second chamber this way. The third test was designed to attack something much harder to defeat. Memory. Kyle entered a dark room. There was no floor, no ceiling, no visible walls, only darkness. Then voices began surrounding him. His mother, his father, his friends, people he had lost years ago. They called his name. They begged him to stop. They told him the trial was pointless. They showed him images of New Earth burning. They showed him his colony being destroyed. Kale's breathing became uneven. The voices grew louder. Elira watched carefully. This was the part where most candidates broke. The trial could create perfect emotional illusions, but Kale did something unexpected. He sat down. He stopped fighting. The voices continued. He listened. After several minutes, he whispered, "You aren't them." The room became silent. One voice answered, "How do you know?" Kale looked into the darkness. "Because they would never ask me to give up." The illusion shattered. The darkness disappeared. Elira slowly stood. The third test had been defeated without technology, force, or deception. It had been defeated by memory. The princess began to understand something uncomfortable. The trial was not measuring physical strength. It was measuring how someone responded when strength was useless. The fourth test waited beneath the palace. It was called the Sea of Glass. Kale entered a massive underground chamber filled with transparent liquid. The liquid looked like water, but it was heavier than metal. A small platform floated in the center. On that platform sat a glowing sphere. The voice returned. "Retrieve the star core." Kale studied the chamber. There were no ladders, no bridges, no machines. The only path was through the liquid. He took a breath and stepped forward. The liquid swallowed him. Instantly, pressure crushed his body. His lungs fought for air. His vision blurred. Yet Kale continued downward. He reached the sphere. Then he saw something beneath it. A small alien creature was trapped inside the chamber. It was young. Terrified, Kale had not been told about it. The trial was supposed to be about retrieving the star core. Kale looked at the sphere, then at the creature. He took the sphere, but instead of swimming upward, he moved toward the trapped animal. The creature was connected to the trial's energy system. Kale understood the design. If he removed the sphere, the creature would die. So he placed the sphere back. Then he began searching for another solution. Elira's scientist stared at the monitor. "The human has abandoned the objective." "No," Elira whispered. "He is changing the objective." Kale discovered a damaged power conduit. He broke open the emergency bracelet. Inside was a tiny battery. It was barely enough to power a signal. But Kale connected it to the conduit. The chamber shook. The creature was released. The star core remained untouched. Elira watched in silence. The trial had been designed so that candidates had to choose between victory and compassion. Kale had refused the choice. He had found a third option. When Kale returned to the main chamber, he was barely conscious. Elira stood waiting. "You failed the fourth test," she said. Kale looked at her. The creature lived. That was not the objective. Then the objective was wrong. The entire chamber became silent. No one spoke to the princess that way. Elira stepped closer. "You believe you understand my trial?" "No." "Then why did you challenge it?" Kyle looked around at the alien nobles. "Because you built a test to find the strongest person in the galaxy." He paused. "But the galaxy doesn't need the strongest person." Elira's eyes narrowed. "What does it need?" "Someone who knows when strength isn't the answer." For the first time, something changed in the princess's expression. Not anger, not fear, recognition. But before she could respond, every light in the palace turned red. An emergency alarm shook the chamber. The chief scientist rushed toward the princess. "Your Highness, the outer defense network has failed." Elira turned. "What?" "The Karen fleets have entered the system." The alien nobles began shouting. The Karen were not part of the trial. They were an ancient enemy of the Valorian Empire. Their fleet had been silent for 40 years. Now more than 10,000 warships had appeared outside the planet. Illyra looked at Kale. The trial suddenly no longer mattered. The Karen had come for the Violorian homeworld, and they had arrived with a weapon that could destroy the planet without firing a single shot. The weapon was called the Hollow Star. It created a field that slowly removed energy from matter. Cities would freeze, oceans would turn to ice, atmospheres would collapse. Nothing could survive inside it. The Valorian fleet attacked. The Karen did not retreat. Within minutes, the Empire lost 3 orbital stations. Illyra ordered every available ship into battle. But the Karen had anticipated every move. Their formation was perfect. Their weapons were stronger. Their numbers were overwhelming. Kale watched the tactical display. He noticed something strange. The Karen ships were not moving randomly. They were following the same pattern as the first trial chamber. Kale stepped toward the display. "Stop." Illyra looked at him. "What?" "Their formation." "What about it?" "It isn't a battle formation." The princess stared at the screen. Kale pointed toward the Karen ships. "They are building a signal." The chief scientist looked confused. Kale continued. "They aren't trying to destroy your fleet." Illyra's face changed. "What are they doing?" "They're unlocking something." Deep beneath the Valorian palace, something ancient awakened. A machine older than the Empire opened its eyes. The entire planet shook. Illyra knew that machine. Every Valorian child learned about it. The Stargate. It had been discovered beneath the planet thousands of years earlier. No one had ever understood its purpose. But now the machine began displaying a symbol, a human symbol. Kale stared at it. It was the symbol of old Earth. Illyra looked at him. "Why would human technology be beneath our planet?" Kale slowly approached the machine. "It may not be human technology." "What do you mean?" He touched the symbol. The machine activated. A message appeared in an ancient language. Kyle's emergency bracelet translated it. Only 4 words appeared. "They will come again." Illyra felt cold. "Who?" Before Kale could answer, another message appeared. The humans were not the first. The room went silent. For about thousands of years, every civilization in the galaxy had believed humanity was young, a minor species, a late arrival. But the machine suggested something impossible. Humanity had been here before, long before recorded history. And humanity had not built the Stargate. It had inherited it. The Karen attack suddenly made sense. They were not invading the Valorian Empire. They were searching for the same ancient system. And they had finally found it. The Karen commander transmitted a message. Every screen in the palace showed the face of an armored alien. "Return the human to us." Illyra stared at the screen. The commander continued. "He carries the final key." Kale's face became pale. Illyra turned toward him. "You knew?" "No." "What key?" Kale looked at his emergency bracelet. A tiny symbol had appeared on it. He had carried the bracelet for 7 years. His father had given it to him before his death. Kale had always believed it was only a rescue device. Now he realized it had never been ordinary. The Karen commander spoke again. "Human, your ancestors hid the gate." Kale stepped closer to the screen. "Why?" The alien answered. "Because they knew what was coming." The transmission ended. Illyra looked toward the Stargate. The machine was opening. Beyond it was not another planet. It was darkness. A darkness filled with millions of distant lights. Then one of those lights moved. Another followed. Then thousands. Something was approaching from the other side. The Karen had not come to conquer the galaxy. They had come because they were afraid. And now Kale understood why. The ancient human civilization had disappeared for a reason. They had not been defeated. They had been running. The Stargate opened completely. A vast object emerged. It was larger than a planet. Its surface was covered in structures that looked like cities. Illyra stared in disbelief. Kale whispered, "That isn't a ship." The chief scientist looked at the display. "Then what is it?" Kale answered, "A warning." The object transmitted a message. This time every language in the galaxy received it. "The last seed has been found." Across the galaxy, ancient systems awakened. Dead satellites turned toward the stars. Abandoned human colonies powered their lights. Forgotten machines began transmitting. And on hundreds of distant worlds, aliens looked toward the sky as the same human symbol appeared above their cities. Elira understood. Humanity had not disappeared. It had left pieces of itself behind. Seeds, not weapons. Knowledge, memory, science, culture. Small systems designed to awaken only when the galaxy reached a certain point. Kale's bracelet was one of those seeds. The Karen wanted it because they believed it could control the Stargate. But Kale finally understood its true purpose. The seed was not a key. It was a choice. The Stargate could either open completely and allow the ancient threat into the galaxy, or it could close forever. But closing it required someone to remain inside. Elira looked at Kale. No. Kyle understood what she meant. There is no other way. We can find another way. We don't have time. The alien princess stepped closer. You came here to prove humanity was strong. Kale shook his head. No, he came here because he wanted his colony to survive. And now? Kale looked at the growing darkness beyond the gate. Now the whole galaxy needs to survive. Elira grabbed his arm. You are not going alone. Kale looked at her. For the first time since meeting him, the princess's cold expression was gone. She looked afraid. Not for herself. For him. The Karen fleet entered the palace orbit. The planet shook under the attack. Elira ordered the Valorian fleet to protect the Stargate. Then she did something no princess had ever done. She opened every military channel in the galaxy. She told every civilization the truth. Humanity had not abandoned them. Humanity had prepared for them. And now the galaxy had a choice. Fight together, or disappear separately. One by one, alien fleets answered. The civilizations that had spent centuries fighting each other turned their weapons toward the same enemy. The Karen fleet was suddenly surrounded. But the Karen commander laughed. You still don't understand. His face appeared across the communication network. The threat isn't outside the gate. Elira looked toward Kale. The commander continued. The threat is what humanity left behind. The Stargate began shaking. Kale suddenly remembered the words from the ancient machine. The humans were not the first. That meant there had been another civilization before humanity. A civilization that had discovered the ancient force. A civilization that had tried to control it. And humanity had inherited the consequences. The massive object beyond the gate opened. Inside it was a living structure. A world-sized organism made of light and darkness. The Quran commander whispered, The first hunger. The creature moved. Every star near the gate dimmed. Kale's mind raced. The ancient humans had not built a weapon against it. They had built something else. A network. A galaxy-wide system powered by one simple principle. Connection. Every human colony. Every archive. Every seed. Every ancient device. They were pieces of the same system. Humanity had spent thousands of years preparing the galaxy without telling anyone. Kale finally understood why. The first hunger became stronger whenever civilizations fought alone. It fed on conflict, fear, isolation. The more divided the galaxy became, the stronger it grew. That was why humanity had disappeared. They had realized that the only weapon against it was cooperation, not military strength, not superior technology. Trust. Kale looked at Elira. The trial. She understood. The trial was never designed to find the strongest. Kale nodded. It was designed to find someone who would choose others over himself. Elira looked at the alien symbol on the floor. Her ancestors had forgotten the meaning of the trial. But humanity had not. Kale stepped toward the gate. Elira followed. No. He turned. You can't stop me. I'm not trying to. She extended her hand. I'm going with you. Kale stared at her. You are the princess, and you are human. She smiled faintly. Perhaps the galaxy needs both. Together they entered the Stargate. The light swallowed them. Behind them, the combined fleets opened fire on the Karen forces. But the battle was no longer the true conflict. Inside the gate, Kale and Elira stood in a place where stars floated like dust. The first hunger approached. It was enormous. Its voice filled their minds. Why do you resist? Kale answered. Because people matter. The creature laughed. People destroy one another. Elira stepped forward. Sometimes. The creature moved closer. They betray. Sometimes. They fear. Yes. They fight. Elira looked at Kale. And sometimes they choose not to. The human seed inside Kale's bracelet activated. Across the galaxy, Billions of devices responded. Human archives opened. Alien civilizations shared their knowledge. Scientists combined their research. Old enemies exchanged coordinates. Ships stopped fighting. Planets opened their communication networks. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy acted as one system. The first hunger began to weaken. It had expected weapons. It had prepared for armies. It had never prepared for cooperation. Kale understood the final step. The seed required a human choice. Someone had to give up control of the network. Humanity had spent thousands of years protecting the system because they believed only humans could operate it. But that belief had been the final mistake. Kale removed the bracelet. He placed it inside the heart of the Stargate. Then he opened the network to every civilization. The system became everyone's. Humanity no longer controlled the galaxy's defense. The galaxy controlled it together. The first hunger screamed. Its body began breaking apart into billions of points of light. The darkness disappeared. The stars returned, one by one, then thousands at once. The Stargate closed. Kale collapsed. Illyra caught him before he hit the ground. For several seconds, neither moved. Then Kale opened his eyes. Did it work? Illyra looked toward the stars. Yes, he smiled. Good. But the princess was crying. Kale had never seen her cry before. She looked at him and whispered, "You were supposed to fail my test." Kale gave a tired smile. Maybe your test failed first. For the first time in her life, Princess Illyra laughed. When they returned to the Valorian palace, the galaxy had changed. The Karen surrendered. The Galactic Council was rebuilt. Former enemies began sharing technology. Humanity finally received its seat. But the most important change happened inside the trial chamber. The black stone floor was repaired. The old test remained. Only one thing changed. At the entrance, Illyra ordered a new inscription carved into the wall. It contained no warning, no royal command, no military honor, only a simple sentence translated into hundreds of languages. Strength is not the power to stand alone. Strength is the courage to make sure no one has to. Years passed. Kale never became a soldier. He returned to New Earth and continued working as an engineer. Illyra became one of the most respected leaders in the galaxy. Together they helped build the first interstellar academy where humans and aliens studied side by side. Children learned about the first hunger. They learned about the ancient human seeds. They learned about the Stargate. But most importantly, they learned about the choice that had saved them. One day, a young alien student asked Illyra a question. Was the human really the strongest person in the galaxy? Illyra smiled. No. The child looked confused. Then how did he save everyone? Illyra looked toward the stars. Because when the galaxy asked him to prove how strong he was, he chose to prove how much he cared. Far beyond the academy, an old human colony sent a message. It was only 3 words. The seed lives. Illyra watched the stars quietly. She knew the message was not a warning. It was a promise. Humanity had once believed survival meant protecting itself. Now the galaxy understood something humanity had learned long ago. The greatest civilizations were not remembered because they conquered the most worlds. They were remembered because, when they finally had the power to choose between themselves and everyone else, they chose everyone. And somewhere beyond the edge of known space, another dormant human seed began to glow. Not because a new enemy had arrived, not because another war had begun, but because the galaxy had finally become ready to understand what humanity had been trying to teach it all along. The future was never meant to belong to the strongest. It was meant to belong to those who refused to leave anyone behind.